Okay, so we are now on question item 10 of this topic, still dealing with the identity of spirits. And Kardec specifically devotes this part of the studies. Sorry. And the title he calls distinguish between good and evil spirits. And I think we need to stay away from having this problem with words. What are just words? But keep in mind the word evil over here is a temporary state. And what he calls of good and evil spirit is basically is more elevated and less elevated, or elevated and inferior spirits. Keep in mind that evil is temporary because our true nature is of good, because we are sons and daughters of goodness. So he gives us many clues, many ways for us to be able to make this distinguish of more evolved and less evolved spirit as a tool to help us to protect ourselves from spirits who will try to deviate us from the pathway that spiritism itself leads us toward. He brings here many tools that we can use in our lives in general. But again, because this is a medium's book, it's is guided toward a mediumistic phenomena. And it's specifically, or more specifically, towards psychographies, in which those messages can be utilized, can be carefully analyzed to see if, as John suggests to us, the evangelist, check the spirits to see if it's from God. And as Kardec would suggest, you better reject 10 truth than accept one lie. So I give many different tools, many different clues for us to use to be able to distinguish if the spirit is from God. Of course, it's an expression, or if it's a less evolved spirit. And we start with the item 10 over here, and I'm going to have back to time to recall all of them. Number 10, please.
Okay, number 10. Good spirits never give orders. They do not wish to impose themselves, but only to provide counsel. If they are not listened to, they withdraw. Evil spirits are authoritarian. They give orders, want to be obeyed, and do not withdraw no matter what. All spirits who impose themselves betray their status. They are exclusivist and absolute in their opinions and pretend to be privileged with the truth. They demand blind trust and never appeal to reason, since they know that reason will unmask them.
So good spirits never give orders. And I challenge anyone to go to the books of messages from André Luiz, from Emmanuel, from Joana de Angelis, or any of those evolved spirits to find any orders and anyone dictating what we absolutely have to do it. The spirits will elevated spirits will come in and bring a message presenting a truth for those who want, take. For those who doesn't want it, eventually will. They will suggest a pathway for us to take. Those who choose to take it Now you take it now. Those who want to take it now, you take it tomorrow, or in a century from now, in 1,000 years from now.
Mm.
Because we are in this pathway that of progress, like it or not. So evolved spirits understand that they don't need to try to convince us of anything. They respect our right of making mistakes. They respect the speed to which we move toward perfecting ourselves. On the contrary, less evolved spirits are usually full of themselves. We are very much full of ourselves. We want to impose our ideas. We want to convince people that whatever's in our mind is the truth that everybody must accept and agree to it. It's an obvious sign of being a less evolved spirit. More evolved spirits, they are not selling us anything, so to say. Less evolved spirit, they have to sell something. And something that, because if it's contrary to the divine laws, contrary to the truth, they have to convince us that. And it's very important we say, this says over here, all spirits who impose themselves betray their status. We will reveal ourselves. If you just allow others to continue to talk, if are not so quick to talk, if you learn to become good listeners, we do reveal ourselves one way or another. And if someone comes, I don't know, someone comes to you and offers you something, take this is good for you. And you look at it and, okay, I don't need this. That's very good. Thank you. But no, thank you. I know, but you have to take it. This is excellent. This will change your life. If somebody try to sell you something, you already suspect right then and there that this individual is seeking to profit from you taking that thing, whatever that thing may be. And profit may be in many different ways, not necessarily financially, right? To make a profit by conquering you to follow him in one or another direction. Or it puts them in a position of superiority because I convince someone of doing something else. And more about the spirits being free of pride, they don't need to this. They don't need to do this. And very important here, the issue of appealing to reasoning. So if someone offers you something, I don't know, someone meets me outside and let's go have a beer now. And I say, well, now my friend, I'm sorry, but I can't. I have a commitment and I need to go to the spirit center, and next time perhaps we can do it. No, we don't need to go there today. You go there every week. Now today is my day. You come with me. You're gonna have fun together. We start to suspect this individual is trying to take me away from something. Because a reasonable person says, let's go do this and that. Oh, no, I have commitment. Okay, so next time then. That's the end of the conversation. The reasonable person. If someone insists in deviate you from that path that you are taking, is somebody who's trying to sell you something. Even if your path is not a good one, it is still your right of making mistakes. It should, moreover, should still not impose themselves, even if you go in the wrong way. It states right there, follow this path leads to good things. If you choose to go on a different path, it's a choice that they respect and they will not impose anything. So only by spirit try to impose anything to you, even if it's perhaps a good thing, it's not coming from a more elevated spirit. And this elevated spirit again will respect your right, your your right of create your own destiny, and you will not force anything upon you. Number 11.
Yes. Number 11. Good spirits are never flattering. They approve of any good that is done, but always prudently. Evil ones use exaggerated praise and excite pride and vanity, though they proclaim humility, and they seek to exalt the personal importance of those whom they want to win over.
I got the 12.
Okay. Highly ordered spirits remain above formal purities in all matters. Ordinary spirits are the only ones who give importance to trifling details that are incompatible with truly elevated ideas. Every meticulous prescription is a sure sign of inferiority and deception on the part of a spirit who employs a pompous name.
Put both here together because what I gather from here is the more elevated the spirits, they are, as I usually say, frugal with words. They don't have a need to dress anything with too many words, with too many adjectives. They will say what I have to say in a simple, straightforward manner. Very, very sure of themselves, very confident of the truth that they have to present to us. They will present it the most possible clear and with the least amount of words without any expressions of any vanity or anything like that. A less above the spirit, because they are trying to sell us, they're just trying to prove a point. They will paint that point with as many colors possible. They want to make it as attractive as possible. They will do everything in the that they can to make it appealing to us. And of course, they will get from us what we what leads us, what guides us. So if I'm the type who I like titles, I like to have honor titles, they probably can I use that. They're gonna use pompous titles when they address me, and then I'll feel all good because this spirit is recognizing my value over here. And a more evolved spirit will not do that. Will treat all of us the same. Will, because their messages has this universal appeal. It's not for A, B, or C, but it's for the whole alphabet. Then their language, the way they approach is pretty much uniform to everyone. A less evolved spirit will guide their wordings in a way that it will convince me of something and will try to convince someone else of the same thing, but using a different approach, always full of everything that is appealing to us. It's like throwing when you go out fishing and you throw a lure and you throw that lure that will attract that fish because it is what that fish is looking for. So spirits less evolved but smart enough, they will see what they can use to lure us. So they will paint that pseudo truth with everything that is appealing to us to try to convince us, to sell us what they have to sell to us. Of the spirits, that everything simple, straightforward. But again, when we say simple and straightforward, we say with the eloquence of words because they have it. Okay, and simple, and yet if the material is not easy, it can't be presented in an easy way. Things that are difficult for its own nature. And we have to take it, if you want to learn that material, we have to take with the difficulty that it presents. But you'll be presented, difficult or not, in a simple, straightforward manner. Any comments? Not number 13.
Okay. Number 13, we must distrust any bizarre or ridiculous names used by certain spirits who want to impose their credibility. It would be extremely absurd to take such names seriously.
Yeah, I'd like to make just over parentheses. There's not much comment here. Kardec's not say that it's not possible. Let's say that in our meeting, so to say someone receives a message for, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln, we talk about Abraham Lincoln a lot, or Martin Luther King. It's not absolutely impossible, okay? But once we receive that, sign with those names, we need to be extra careful. We have to be extremely careful to make sure that we can have with a degree of trust, of certainty that indeed come from this or from that spirit. Now, if it comes signed, it was signed by the Virgin Mary, if it comes signed by Jesus, then it's less likely. It's become a little bit more bizarre that you receive messages from Jesus or from Mary. Is it impossible? I cannot say that it's impossible, I do not say it's impossible, but it's very unlikely to happen. So we have to be very careful. And again, reject the 10th truth before accept one lie. And protect yourself and protect the doctrine. Because Kamala is saying that we receive a message from Jesus, he is the message. It becomes a very dangerous situation and make ridicule not ourselves, but the whole doctrine. And we need to protect. 14.
Okay. 14. It's not up yet. Okay, thank you. We must equally distrust spirits who lightly present themselves using highly venerated names, and only with much reserve should we accept what they say. It is especially in such a case that strict control becomes indispensable, because it is frequently a mask that they wear to lead us to believe in their pretended intimate relationships with pure spirits. In this way, they flatter the vanity of the medium and take advantage of it to induce him or her to lamentable and foolish acts.
Okay. So in addition to everything that I said already, which basically what number 14 is the question, why the spirits do that? Why the spirit become over here, leave a message and sign in highly recognizable and honorable names of personnel of history or of religions? Because it's a way to flatter a medium. It's a way to get into that bullseye that it's never missed, the pride, the vanity. Once a spirit, a medium, accept those falsehoods, that medium is now at a very high risk, if not already, become in the process of fascination. And when it happens, it becomes extremely difficult to, so to say, recover that medium to produce good work. Because now that medium is receiving messages from Mary of Magdala, and Mary Magdala gives message only through him on her because she's such a special medium. She's such a devoted Christian and is there to bring the doctrine to the light so everyone can see. And that goes, everyone around sees how ridiculous it is, except that medium, because now it's in a process of fascination. So the spirits will use that, will use names in order to sell what they wanted to sell, because they know they will flatter a medium, and that medium will become fascinated. And once that happens, it becomes a really, really difficult problem to be resolved. 15.
Okay. Good spirits are very scrupulous regarding the attitudes they wish to advise. In every case, they only have a serious and eminently useful purpose in mind. Thus, we must regard with suspicion all advice which does not display this character or which reason would condemn, and we must maturely reflect before accepting it. Otherwise, we open ourselves to unfortunate deception.
So this is pretty much everything that's said so far. Any questions? Otherwise, we move to 16.
Okay. Good spirits may also be recognized by their prudent reserve when touching upon matters that may compromise us. Unveiling evil is repugnant to them, whereas frivolous or malefic spirits love exposing it, while good spirits seek to mitigate error and proclaim indulgence. Evil ones exaggerate it and breathe discord through harmful insinuations.
Okay, so this comes from the suggestion from Christ that should always stress the good in people, minimize the the not so good in people, and only speak about the bad in people, the vices of people, when is absolutely necessary, when it has a character of educating, of assisting those individuals. Otherwise, to come and point fingers of all my vices, if you're not going to help me, why do so? So when you see spirits who start to point fingers, who start to show all the defects and all the vices of others, you already know that you're not talking about, it's not coming from an elevated spirit. And more than that, you can see the spirits that's trying to create a disharmony in a group. And I'm being very specific here in spiritist groups, because this again is dealing with mediumship. And one of the things that spirits were against the doctrine, spirits who do not want to see the development of this doctrine will do everything to stop it, and will try to create disharmony in groups. So every time there is spirits to bring messages that shows the errors of others, that shows the vices of others, and it's not on a sincere attempt of help, of assisting when absolutely necessary, it cannot become from the motive of the spirit and cannot be used in an spiritist meeting. Continue, 17.
17. Good spirits teach only what is good. Every maxim, every bit of advice does not strictly conform to the purest evangelical charity, could not come from a good spirit.
So,
Continue, 18.
yeah, so no Socrates suggests, right? Speak only if it's the truth, if it's good, and if it's useful. The truth, the three things together. If it's not the truthful, good, and useful, keep your mouth shut.
Mhm.
And elevated spirits follow this suggestion. 18.
Okay, 18. Good spirits only provide perfectly reasonable advice. Every recommendation, every recommendation that departs from the straight line of common sense or the immutable laws of nature betrays the presence of a narrow-minded spirit and is therefore unworthy of trust.
Yeah, this is also very straightforward.
Mm.
If spirits are suggesting things that are not really compatible with the time, with the life, with everything that we live here, it becomes extremely suspicious. If spirits start to give in formulas or of resolving problems that seems to be outside of the realm of reality, it cannot become from a more evolved spirit.
Mm.
19.
19. Plainly evil or simple imperfect spirits also reveal themselves through physical signs that should not deceive anyone. Their action upon a medium is sometimes violent, provoking brusque and jerking movements, a feverish and compulsive agitation that contracts with the calm and gentleness of good spirits.
We see that in our leadership meetings very often.
Mm.
We have never seen one of the mediums of psychography having any jerk emotions, have any irate kind of movements when they're receiving messages from the mentors of the house. On the contrary, when you receive spirits who rebellious spirits who are angry for being there, they do express all that anger and very often makes the medium act in, not that they act on the violence, but have the emotions that is suggestive of violence with those jerky movements and everything that he describes here. We always see that in our leadership meetings, that the mediums will actually report to us how difficult, how hard, even painful some of those experiences are. And on the contrary, when they receive psychography from the mental of their house, they enjoy that moment of pleasure, so to say, of contentment, of peace when they are receiving those messages. 20.
Okay, 20. Imperfect spirits often take advantage of the means of communication at their disposal to offer bad counsel, and they arouse distrust and animosity among those whom they dislike. Anyone who might unmask their deceit is especially a target of their malevolence. Frail individuals become the target of their efforts and are led by them into evil. They alternately use sophisms, sarcasm, abuse, and even physical proof of their occult power to better convince such victims and turn them from the way of truth.
Again, this inferior spirits may be very inferior morally, but not necessarily intellectually. And they have they're intelligent enough to know who, whom to target and what behaviors they want to lead on those ones that they target. Again, vanity and pride is that bullseye that they will never miss. But all this stuff, if let's say someone who I don't know is let's say a racist and has tremendous sentiments of anger towards one other race, one other race, any race, okay? Nothing. The spirits who want to see this individual or share the same kind of sentiment or wants to lead this individual to act on that sentiment of violence towards one another race, they, they will do everything that they can on their power, and they will bring about, if this individual happens to be a medium, stimulate those sentiments. It's like to adding wood to the fire, so to say, and make those individuals act as in accordance to their sentiments. All of us have our prejudices, all of us have our many vices. You don't act on them. Some of us may have preference or dislike one or another group of people. It's possible. No, no, not perfect yet. That's why you are here. But you don't act on them. And other some we start to having a desire to start to act in our anger or on in our dislikes. Where does it come from? It's very likely that it being motivated as being come from um, spirits. And if you are mediums and you have this open window to divine to the spiritual world, we become even a bigger target. And that is the great importance and this necessity of mediums to educate themselves morally, because they are at risk, because they are an easier target of those less evolved spirits to become fascinated and to act on our prejudices, on our vices that otherwise you would not. We're in the process of freeing ourselves from those vices. We are in the process of freeing ourselves from those prejudices, trying to become true Christians, so to say. But if we start listening to those spirits, if we have become having that constant influence of those spirits, it may help us to act on the things that we have tried not to. 21.
21. The spirits of persons who have had a sole physical or moral preoccupation on the earth, who have not yet managed to free themselves from the influence of matter, continue to be dominated by earthly ideas. Consequently, they bring with them some of the prejudices and predilections and even the same manias that they had while living on this world. This is easy to recognize by their language.
I think there's just what I covered again. Spirits was still fixated with material ideas, still fixated with the devices that they carry over here, the prejudice that they carry over here. Once they communicate, they bring what they are. They can't present anything else. That's what they are. They bring the manias, they bring the prejudices, they bring the vices, and they will try to use one of us as a tool for them to act on that, on those manias, on those vices, on those prejudices, on those angers.
Mm.
Next. If you have any questions or any comments, just go ahead and start speaking, because this is very straightforward.
We're up to 22.
Yes, please.
Yes. Wait. Okay. 22. The knowledge with which certain spirits often use to adore themselves with a sort of ostentation is no sign of superiority. The true touchstone for verifying superiority is the inalterable purity of their moral sentiments.
23.
Okay. It is not enough to simply question a spirit in order to know the truth. We must above all know whom we are addressing, for due to their own ignorance, less evolved spirits deal lightheartedly with the most serious questions. It is also not enough for a spirit to have been a great individual while on earth to subsequently be possessed of high knowledge in the spirit world. Only virtue can purify it, bring it closer to God, and broaden its knowledge.
Here there is a little difficulty, because we, Kadak, in the beginning of the chapter, that's very clearly that we don't like to be questioned, to be doubted, to have to prove ourselves. No one likes that, and the more evolved spirits don't need to be put into an interrogation process to see if the messages has any value or not, if they are from God or not. Well, and on the other hand, Kardec saying that we need to be very careful, do the proper investigation. And that's where the idea comes from: allow the spirits to reveal themselves. We don't need to be having those, put it into interrogatory. We don't have to have to put them under magnifying lenses. We do reveal ourselves. And when it comes to issues that we don't really understand very well ourselves, let's say talking about life in the spiritual world, how much do we really know? How much do we really remember? How much can we actually challenge a spirit to say if the spirit is telling the truth or not? It is in the details. It is in the details that the spirits will declare him or herself, that we do present ourselves. And that happens when we allow the spirits to speak, and we dissect, know every single word, the kind of language, and everything that we can, that we'll be able to identify if the spirit is more or less above the spirit. The spirit who get closide 22, who adorn themselves with titles, with sorts of ostentations, cannot be coming for a more elevated spirit, because they are free from those material titles. Let's say a spirit who played a whole role of a king or emperor at one point. If that spirit is more elevated, they will not be carrying that title. They may carry it when necessary as a means of identifying. Oh, I was emperor such and such in such time of the world, as a mean of identifying itself, but not as if they're carrying that title in the spiritual world, because that's a sign of a letter of the spirit. I am the king such and such and such. That's a red flag. Or I was in previous incarnation, I was king is such and such, it's a completely different thing. When I say I am king X, and when I say in previous incarnation, I was king X, it's two completely different things. You see that the one who say I am king is still keep the title as something that is a part of him or himself as a king. And the one who says, I was a king in that set reincarnation, how 1,000 years ago, whatever, is stating that it no longer carry that title. A more evolved spirit will not carry those types of ostentations because it becomes meaningless to them. And those are very important clues that we need to use to differentiate more and less evolved spirits. But again, it's very important to mention that at some point it may be necessary in order to identify, because again, we are attached to those names. Not that they may be attached to those names. But again, if you receive the message inside on the bottom pole of Tarsus, it's a lot more meaningful to us than if it's signed by someone, let's say, of the follower of Buddha, that perhaps in that part of the world is recognized and is considered to be someone of great respect. For us, we are not familiar with that culture. We may not give as much value as if it's signed for as a sign Paul of Tarsus, and they may carry the same value, the same value. They may be equally good, but the name makes a difference, unfortunately, for most of us. So they will present themselves, they will give their names, and then it's up to us, and that's the reason of doing all this. It's up to us to use all the clues that Kazakh provides here to say that we can actually say that it may be from Paul of Tarsus. I have enough evidence here that it's got to be from Paul of Tarsus, or at least it carries the same moral values of everything that we know of Paul of Tarsus. So we keep it. But if it's not someone using that name, using those tools that Kardec provides for us, we will be able to pick, to dissect that message and say, down, this is not from Paul of Tarsus. And this job has to be ours, not from the spiritual world, not expecting that our spiritual guides will do that for us. It's our job using all this guidance that has been provided to us here.
Okay, number 24 then.
Yes.
The pleasantries of highly evolved spirits are often subtle and keen, but never banal. Among mocking spirits, those who are not too crass, biting sarcasm is almost always apropos.
Next.
Okay. By attentively studying the character of the spirits who manifest themselves, especially from the moral point of view, we can recognize their nature and the degree of trust they deserve. Common sense could never be deceived.
Okay, nothing to add here. Any questions?
Okay.
26.
26. In order to judge both spirits and individuals, we must first know how to judge ourselves. Unfortunately, there are people who make their own opinions the exclusive measuring stick for good and evil, truth and falsehood. Everything that contradicts their way of seeing things, their ideas, or the theory they have invented or adopted is bad in their sight. Such individuals obviously lack the first condition for correct evaluation, rectitude of judgment. However, they do not even realize it. This is the defect that produces the most illusion. All the above instructions are the result of experience and the teaching of the spirits. We shall supplement them with the answers provided by the spirits themselves with regards to the most important points.
Okay. And I think this is probably 26, the most important. Kardec suggests was that you need to do this work of dissecting messages, of analyzing everything that comes from the spiritual world. John, the evangelist, suggests that you have to test the spirit to see if it's from God. But perhaps the most essential thing is in 926 that says, in order to judge both spirits and individuals, we must first know how to judge ourselves. And an individual to become a judge in our legal system has to do a lot of studies, has to do a lot of work on the field of advocacy first, before it is in that position of being judge, of deciding if someone, to their ability of the discernment, decided someone has broken a law, someone is lying, someone is deceiving. That's the job. That's the job of the judge, to decide which side carries more truth, which side is more in accordance with the law of the land. It's someone who is prepared to be in that position. Naturally, in our physical life, we are not perfect. The judges are not perfect. The system is not perfect. Perhaps not every judge should be a judge. No, that's a different discussion. But as we say very often in a center, unfortunately, we are in position sometimes to make a judgment. We judge people, we judge people's characters, and what we use as the measuring stick. And that's the point that Kardec brings over here. How are we able to free ourselves from our prejudices and not make those judgments? How am I able to be very objective when I make those judgments? When I read a message that comes from the spirits, again, let's suppose that I am a racist, and I feel that message has a tone of equality of races. I'm not gonna like it. I'm gonna say it's not coming from a good spirit, because I'm a racist. I don't believe in equality. So in order for me to accept that as of value, I have to, one, free myself from my racism would be the ideal, or at least recognize that I am a racist and be completely impartial when I make the judgment. And that is the need of us to, as we say in spirit, to perform mediumship with Jesus, in which we use the necessity of the judgment as not as a mean, as a tool to point fingers, to ridicule others, but simply to protect ourselves, to protect the doctrine. And when we're doing that, we are assisting those spirits. They are learning from us. There is everything to gain, but we have to start it ourselves. We have to be in that position where we can be fair judges of the things they receive from the spiritual world. Comments, question? We're going to stop here. Yeah, I didn't expect. Everything is very straightforward. It's very hard to even add anything to it. The writing of Kardec in this topic is very easy to understand and very objective, and it's hard even to add something to it. And next week we have some answers given to Kardec from the spirits that are a little bit more interesting, perhaps. Can you make a final prayer, Soraya, please?
Of course. And now, as we come to the end of our beautiful lessons here today, the identity of spirits, we thank you, dear Lord, for allowing us here again, understanding most important mediumship and all that comes with it. May we take with it and understand it and learn from it and use it in our lives. We ask, dear Lord, as we come to the end of our meeting, for the prayers for all that are in need. We're still going through this pandemic and difficulties with their finances. We pray for their strength and courage to have the strength of faith to pray and ask God for assistance and help. We pray for our Spiritist group of New York, for all the Spiritist centers throughout this land. With gratitude and humbleness, we are so grateful. May we continue throughout the week with our study groups, learning and putting into practice most important. Have faith and follow our precepts of Jesus. We are so grateful with that in mind, dear Lord. We ask permission to close our meeting tonight. So be it.